Hi there and welcome to GetIndieGaming and to our annual countdown of the best indie game releases of 2021. It's been yet another astonishing year for new indie games, and one full of innovation and creativity across the board. What follows are our own personal choices of the indie games of 2021 we've most enjoyed playing. And if we've missed your personal favourite, do let us know down in the comments. And with that, let's hand things over to the best indie games of 2021. At number 10, Wildermyth came out in June onto PC. It's a fantasy, turn-based tactical RPG that utilises aspects of visual novels and gameplay more associated with experiences you might find within tabletop mechanics. Wildermyth sees you build a collective of like-minded folks, all with differing abilities and skills to set off and do battle against the hordes of evil. These battle sections are delightfully solid. However, what earns Wildermyth a place in this year's Indie Game of the Year rundown is what it does with its consistently strong writing and overall storytelling. The prose and conversations between characters often feel poetic, and given all of this uses emergent or procedural techniques, every playthrough, which mostly saw us playing this as a group in a kind of an informal couch co-op, has seen us deftly immersed within the game's fantasy world, where we also continually felt invested within our characters' stories and their in-game legacies once they no longer ceased to be. There's also no padding, no waffle or pretentiousness, and all in makes for a terrific story-driven experience, quite like anything else we played all year. From September and out on PC, PlayStation and the Nintendo Switch, at number 9, Bonfire Peaks was one of the bigger surprises to come out of 2021. This Sokoban-inspired puzzler sees the protagonist retreat into the woods to burn their possessions, to let the past go up in flame and smoke, all within a delightfully block-based voxel-like environment. In places, Bonfire Peaks is fiendishly tricky, with a little bit of lateral thinking needed to figure out the solutions. Like all good puzzlers from recent years, it excels in those yes, I get it kind of moments, where the solution falls into place either by brute force, luck, which isn't very often, or from having you deduce what's needed via good old-fashioned reasoning. What also works so well here comes in the form of a dedicated sit down and take stock button. Upon activation, your character gently takes a seat, crosses their arms and legs, and in some cases holds their knees tight to the chest. It feels almost like a form of meditation and perfectly suits the overall mood of the game. In some occasions, the puzzles and their solutions can be decompiled in parts, often by the name of the level, although as we alluded to earlier, Bonfire Peaks is best tackled with a clear head and a methodical step-by-step approach. It's exceedingly clever in what it does, with it adding new elements and building upon older mechanics throughout the progression. All in all, it's an utter delight and handles its melancholic tones with fair grace and style. At the number 8 spot in this Indie Game of the Year rundown, we have the ever-delightful TOEM, a game that explores and delves into the notion of creativity, all via the medium of photography. It's fair to say there have been a glut of games of late with photographic elements, and we've probably played most of them. Games such as Nuts, the delightfully named Paparazzi, Alba, a wildlife adventure, and perhaps the most well-known of such games from recent times, Bugsnax, are all fabulous examples where photography is used as a gamification mechanic. However, what we really like about what TOEM does with this method of play is how simply and realistically the photographic elements have been implemented. And honestly, that's a real compliment, as it keeps things in line with what you're able to do here in the game with actual photography in real life. What I mean by this is that via your character's camera body, the lens, and later in the game a few accessories, you're able to collate, curate, and tell stories about the people you meet as you make your way across the game. And that's the real point of photography, particularly photojournalism, where you're using images in place of words to get your point or story across to the viewer. TOEM affords this opportunity of showcasing people's stories in spades. There's so much going on here, be they relatively short interactions that come and go, or longer stretched out sections meandering across TOEM's world, which keep a sense of consistency and help shape the overall world building. As for the world overall, well again, it's just an utter wonderful delight, and when paired together with one of the finest soundtracks of the year, TOEM is a triumph. It's the kind of game within its 4 or 5 hours of playtime that feels like a warm blanket and a cup of your favourite hot beverage on a damp and chilly winter's evening. It's witty, it's fun, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and as a mirror into the world of photographic creativity and the power of the glass, there's nothing out there to match it. Moving on, and at number 7, Unpacking is billed as a cozy zen-like game, where you unpack boxes over an extended period of flat and house shares within the life of the female protagonist. On one level, Unpacking can be extremely relaxing. It's easy to pick up with its drag and drop mechanic as you place items into wardrobes, kitchen units, bathroom areas, and, well, any other room you're likely to find in any normal home or flat. However, underneath all the unboxing and suspicious lack of packing newspaper and boxes that vanish when empty, there are instances here that can be relatively deep and somewhat troubling. There's one instance where you move in, we think, with your significant other, and from the rooms, their layout and decor, it's apparent this relationship is a non-goer, with this cemented by your inability to place one of your most treasured possessions anywhere other than under the bed, within a wardrobe, or on the wall of the bathroom. There's plenty more going on in Unpacking than it is first apparent, and in places it is deeply moving, with its symbolism and poignant tale of a life's journey from box to box and move after move. Unpacking is available on PC, the Nintendo Switch, and Xbox platforms.
We stood together at the rail, Malcolm and I. I told him I could see dolphins playing in the wake of the boat. He leant over to see them. So I grabbed him by the belt. And I threw him overboard.
At number 6, and out on iOS, PC and the Nintendo Switch, we have Overboard. Set in the 1930s on board an ocean liner travelling from England to New York, the game starts with you murdering your husband by helping him fall from the upper deck into the ocean below. What follows is best described as a text-driven visual novel, time loop-driven whodunit, where you're the person who did it, with you looking to literally get away with murder before settling to live over in the US with a comfortable life insurance policy to keep you, well, nice and comfortable. Developed in around 2 months from Inkle, the team behind 80 Days and Heaven's Vault, there's a delicious, almost jovial portrayal of you the murderer and what you're able to get up to on board the liner. Don't worry, there's no spoilers here, although you can get up to some pretty dark things in this one, although there's also a delicate and dry sense of humour going on throughout. While relatively a short game, we took numerous playthroughs to finally get walking away from the boat without feeling the long arm of the law. It took even longer to achieve this while also pocketing the insurance money, and it's this loop where you can tweak and change the interactions you have with the NPCs that kept us coming back to play it again and again. On its release, we as a small collective ended up playing Overboard mostly as a group. Now, we often do this when playing games such as this. We'll sit around the TV and play it in co-op, all of us with notebooks, and we took our time to pull together our thoughts collectively, as whenever we engaged with an NPC or NPCs, we did so as a kind of group. Is it worth popping into the chapel to take a look? Yes, it certainly is. And in so doing, we found Overboard a wonderful party game to play over a few drinks and nibbles. There were plenty of time loop games in the media spotlight this past year, and for us, Overboard was the standout one of them all. At number 5, Sable is a coming-of-age story about a girl looking to find her place within or outside of her tribe, with this choice represented by the masks she's able to wear, which represent a particular position within society. A merchant, an entertainer, the cartographer, a machinist. She needs to earn the right to wear such masks through various quests you find throughout the open world. It's a game full of stories, some of which have answers, others which leave you, well, you're not quite sure what's happening, and you need to decide or kind of figure out the narrative that might play out to the conclusion. First and foremost though, Sable is a game about discovery and discovery for its own sake. I can't think of a game I've played in the last few years that tests and rewards a player's own intrinsic motivation. It's also one of the truest representations of the open world genre you can find anywhere. While open world games typically lead and point you in various directions, this is often so you arrive at a certain place along a certain path as to better show off points of interest at the best possible angle. Well, there's none of that here, with each person's playthrough being different than the next. Another high point are the visuals with their Mobius stylings, together with a vibrant day and night cycle that upends completely how things look within the game. Come the night, most of the colour is washed out, things are grey and monochrome, while much of the forms and buildings look like the wire skeleton you might find underneath a papier-mâché model. It's all really rather exquisite, as is the act of traversal across the landscape via your glider. While there are fast travel options, I didn't use them as there's plenty of enjoyment and reflection to be had in the act and art of your motion over the sand. Sable is one of the finest examples of a true open world that's ever been made. At number 4, we have a new branch to the Shovel Knight franchise, with it dropping late in the year. A reason we hold off these rundowns until well into December in case we miss something. Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon is a new outing for the franchise, with it being a block-falling puzzler with adventure and roguelite elements that brought a slight frown to our collective faces on first sight, although this mashup of Tetris and Bejeweled all comes together rather nicely. This one sees you take charge of Shovel Knight or any of the 12 other playable characters, each of which have their own skills and abilities which impact how you play the game. Now this is a nice little touch, as it offers a neat loop in which to keep coming back to the game, to play through all of the characters and kind of learn which works best in which situations and which one, well, really doesn't. The main campaign features 10 or so levels, all are based on the original Shovel Knight adventure, with them home to instantly recognisable enemies. I personally found the adventure mode, which plays out like a good old roguelite, to be the most enjoyable, with it putting up a decent level of challenge. The daily challenges are also a welcome touch, and I suspect as a group we'll be coming back to this on a semi-regular basis throughout the forthcoming months and perhaps years ahead. Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon is currently available on PC, the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation. Taking the first slot on this year's podium. Of the hundreds of games we saw and played this past year, there have been very few like Chicory: A Colourful Tale. That fits so well into where we as a collective found ourselves halfway through 2021 when it launched, but also as we continue to feel as we wind down to the end of the year. While on the face of things and at first glance, the world of Chicory is full of what you might expect to see from something that looks somewhat cozy. It's full of warmth, charm, grace, love, and yet bubbling away not too far under the surface, we can find a darkness, a sense of fear, a sense of world weariness and insecurity. Things we can all almost certainly relate to, all of which is neatly wrapped within a top-down Zelda-like battling platformer. Chicory doesn't spoon-feed or treat any of these sort of subjects with kid gloves. To be honest, having again played it on the Switch following its release in the past few days, How deftly it tackles these subjects was almost certainly lost on me when I first played it. Chicory also gives me reasons for hope, for betterment, and a more worldly look on being a better human. There are few other games out there from 2021 that tackles mental health issues so subtly and so well. As of this late December, Chicory: A Colourful Tale is available on PC, PlayStation, and the Nintendo Switch. At number 2, and perhaps a surprise to some viewers, given how much we've gone on about this one over the course of the year, well, our number 2 is Death's Door. Developed by Acid Nerve, with a core team of only 5 people based out of Manchester in the UK. This outfit has found previous fame with Titan Souls from back in 2015, with Death's Door tackling and building upon its tricky and challenging boss-based combat. At its launch on PC and Xbox in the middle of July, we called this a triumph. This radiates across what's a completely cohesive experience, be this the level design, the fluidity and energy from its combat, to the overarching fairy tale inspired story that builds throughout and continues within the post-game. It's also visually graceful, particularly how your character hops and skips about the environment, all wrapped up together with a soundtrack we'd place alongside those of Journey, Cuphead, and what remains of Edith Finch. In a few words, Death's Door is pretty special, and while it gives a fair few nods towards its Zelda, Dark Souls and Bloodborne inspirations, it's far more accessible, with perhaps the exception of the final boss, than those last 2 Gothic-inspired battlers. That said, make no mistake, Death's Door is a challenging game, and for me the difficulty is just about spot on, with it giving me around 12 or so hours of playtime, and plenty more if you're playing as a completionist, which for me I was able to do, with the exception of the challenge where you only play the game using an umbrella as your only melee weapon. I like a challenge, and yet that's just a step too far for my playing abilities. Huge kudos to any folks out there who were able to beat this game under those conditions. Of course, it's not perfect. The lack of difficulty modifiers is a shame. This will be a tad too hard for some people, and an option to tone down the combat to focus on the game's story would have been welcome. There are also a few sections late within the game where you face what are essentially timed challenges across icy platforms which require some exceptionally precise aiming and platforming skills. Those parts, they were not particularly enjoyable. Had there been more of these sections, well, I doubt this would have made it into the top 10, let alone the runners-up position. However, and thankfully, that's not the case. Death's Door is a very special game, with only one other coming out this year we preferred playing. At number 1, and collectively GetIndieGaming's best indie game of 2021, Inscryption comes from Pony Island creator Daniel Mullins. It's a non-traditional deck-building collectible card game, although there's also roguelike elements and hidden object game sections to it, with it also delivering some truly unnerving moments. It's also one of the most difficult games of many a year to talk about without touching upon spoilers, and if you are new to this one, we urge you to go into it as spoiler-free as possible. There are so many twists and turns that shape this game over the course of the playthrough, with it changing and transforming from one section to the next. It's just that little bit different to anything you've probably ever played. As you progress through the various acts, things are upended. Things that didn't make sense or perhaps you thought were inconsequential details gather more meaning and, well, more presence. It's also one of those games that keeps you playing. I loaded this up one Sunday evening and played it for a solid 8 hours straight before bleary-eyed taking the bus into work, with Inscryption still fully front and centre in my consciousness. This is brilliant in ways to explain how and why in more detail would rob other players of the experience I've muchly enjoyed. It's an utter delight, and not only is it the best indie game we've played all year, it sits right up alongside Hades as one of the greatest indie games ever made. So there we go, that's a wrap for our Indie Game of the Year 2021 rundown. Which games from this year did you most enjoy? Let us know down there in the comments, and if you like this countdown, give that like button a good old click. Either way, many thanks for watching, and we'll see you all again here next time.